What's up, guys, and welcome to the HVAC Dope Show. Today's video is probably going to be one of the dopest videos we have ever made, but before we get started, go ahead and smash that like button if you haven't done so already, and subscribe to our channel. Carbon monoxide, what is it? Why should you care? Is it dangerous? And why are we making this video? So first off, let's talk about carbon monoxide. What is carbon monoxide? And carbon monoxide is a gas that is left over from the combustion process anytime something is burnt. So whether it's a furnace or a car engine or a coal plant, anytime you are burning a fuel, you will have carbon monoxide as one of the exhaust gases. However, the reason we are talking about it is because it is dangerous and toxic to humans in high quantities and can even be fatal. And something to note about carbon monoxide is that your furnace, if it is tuned properly, should have relatively very low levels of carbon monoxide in the exhaust gases, and that is because carbon monoxide is a sign of incomplete combustion. Now, you will always have some levels of carbon monoxide in any sort of appliance that burns natural gas, for example, but if you have very high concentrations of it, like 200 ppm or more, then chances are your system is running rich or running lean, meaning that it has too much fuel or too much air in its mixture. So that's a nutshell version of what carbon monoxide is in the context of this video as it relates to furnace and boilers. And one of the things that most HVAC companies will do when they are doing a tune-up or a furnace certification is check for CO in the airstream or in the mechanical room. And this is to determine whether or not you have a compromise in your heat exchanger, your exhaust piping, or whether or not you have poor drafting and not enough combustion air, for example. Now, oftentimes we come across systems that have levels of CO either coming out of the heat exchanger from a boiler or a furnace, and when it is entering the airstream in the home or leaking from the cabinet, for example, in this case of a cast iron boiler, that creates a potentially hazardous situation. And the risk with carbon monoxide is that it has no smell and therefore it's undetectable unless you have carbon monoxide detectors in your home, which you should. And the risk with carbon monoxide as it relates to furnaces or boilers is that if you have a compromise in your heat exchanger, for example, or a system that is not drafting properly and the exhaust gases are building up in your home, you could end up with a condition where this toxic gas is building up in your home and in extremely high quantities could result in death. But that being said, I want to tackle the facts so that you know how common it is or isn't. Now, in an article from the CDC, we have linked in the description section below, they have linked approximately 2,244 deaths from the year 2010 to 2015 that were specifically related to carbon monoxide, and 393 of those were in the year 2015. Now, the reason I point that out is that all things or of all the things to keep you up at night, I would be more concerned with dropping your cigarette habit and putting down that Big Mac, because by comparison, meaning heart disease and obesity and tobacco combined, they are responsible for way more deaths than carbon monoxide every year. So by no means is it a leading cause of death, but it is still something you should be concerned about and protect yourself against. And in this video, we are going to tell you how you can do that. Now, the number one thing you can do to protect yourself is make sure you have a couple of carbon monoxide detectors in your home, and you want them mounted in the areas where people sleep, and you want them near the ceiling since carbon monoxide is lighter than air and it will accumulate near the ceiling first. Now, carbon monoxide detectors will protect you from high levels of carbon monoxide that are dangerous and are typically calibrated to start alarming you if the presence reaches a threshold concentration of 100 parts per million or 50 parts per million. And the reason they have such a high threshold is the truth is that anytime you use a gas stove or gas range indoors, you're going to have a little bit of carbon monoxide coming off and entering the room. So in these instances, it is normal. It's not something to be alarmed with. But what about other appliances like furnaces, water heaters, and boilers? The short answer to that is in appliances like these, 100% of the flue gases should be going outside of the home through the exhaust, and if any carbon monoxide is coming through the vents in your home or from the cabinet of the boiler or your furnace, then you could have a draft issue or an issue with the heat exchanger, which needs to be resolved immediately. And the reason in this instance it needs to be resolved immediately is that these appliances should be exhausting 100% of the exhaust gases outside of the home. So if any of the exhaust gases are staying in the home, it is a problem that needs to be addressed. That being said, most of the times that we find carbon monoxide in a home, it is in much smaller concentrations than anything that would set off your home carbon monoxide detector, and can be as little as 5, 10, 15 parts per million coming out of your vents or off of the cabinet of the heat exchanger. And the way to detect this is with a simple meter like the Fluke CO20 or the UER carbon monoxide detectors. And if you ever get a meter that picks up carbon monoxide, it is good to check it with a backup meter. And the reason is that meters, like all pieces of technology, can put out false readings from time to time. So it's important to get a second reading. This is why anytime that we pick up carbon monoxide, we have made it our policy in our company to get a check with a second meter and a higher end meter like a back-rack combustion analyzer, or at least just a second meter. And the reason we do this is that there have been times that we've had questionable readings, and some meters like Field Piece, for example, are unreliable and can give out false readings. And this is why we are very intentional and specific about brands and types of meters we use. And if you'd like a link to these meters, they are posted in the description below, so you know which meters we use and which meters we are referencing in this video. And that being said, the reason we put out this video is because it is not uncommon for some companies to unintentionally give bad recommendations based on a faulty reading. Unfortunately, we've had this happen in our company in the past, which is why we've changed our policies to minimize this. And this is also why it's a policy at our company to pay for a second opinion, so that you know we are being transparent in our recommendations. If you want a second opinion on anything we do, we pay for the competition to come out at our expense. We pay their service call. So let's assume you just had someone come out to check your system and they gave you a diagnosis of a cracked heat exchanger, and you verify that it is in fact putting carbon monoxide out. What should you do, or what are your options? The first thing we recommend is, depending on the age of the system, is considering replacement. Oftentimes when we detect carbon monoxide, it is on much older systems that are due for replacement, so this becomes one of our primary recommendations. However, it is not your only option. The exception to this rule is anytime you have a cracked or compromised boiler heat exchanger, for example, because a cast iron boiler heat exchanger is the boiler. If those are compromised, then your only option is to replace that system, because there's no way to replace a heat exchanger on a cast iron boiler. But technically on a forced air furnace, even if the furnace is 20 to 30 years old, you can repair the system by just replacing the heat exchanger. It is an option. Just keep in mind it's an expensive option normally, because it involves disassembling the majority of the furnace, pulling the firewall, putting the entire furnace back together again. I mean, you're pulling off the inducer motor, everything. And we really only get customers that want to use this option if they want the absolute cheapest fix because they're selling the home, or they're just the type that likes to fix things instead of replacing them, which I totally understand. And on the last note I'll make on this point is it's important to get a clear diagnosis on where the carbon monoxide is coming from, because if you are picking up carbon monoxide in your ductwork, 99% of the time it's coming from the heat exchanger or some sort of compromise in the heat exchanger, which is when you'll end up with a recommendation for a furnace replacement. But if you just have carbon monoxide in the mechanical room, it could be something as simple as a system not drafting properly for a variety of reasons. And I've seen mistakes as simple as roofers crushing the exhaust cap on the roof, which then caused the furnace to backfeed exhaust gases through the water heater's natural draft exhaust run. And if this is the case, replacing the furnace or the heat exchanger or water heater will accomplish nothing, because the issue is that it is not drafting properly, which is what needs to be addressed instead, because this is the primary cause. So that being said, we hope you enjoyed the show. And if you have any questions, please post them in the comment section below, and we will do our best to respond to everyone. And if you have a separate HVAC or a specific HVAC topic that you would like us to make a video about, let us know and we will do our best to accommodate. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and like this video if you haven't done so already. It's one of the best ways you can support our channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Howard Binder, signing off.